All right, how's it going, everybody? This is Anon. None of this is financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. All right, so getting everything launched up and ready to go. How's everyone doing? All right. Spooner, what's up, dude? What's up, Goat? How are you guys? How's everybody's day going? What's up, Andrew? How are you, bud? We'll start our little party here. I'm doing okay. I've been busy at work. I'm hoping to get some more time back to myself. I've been working on these projects. So I think I told you guys there was a company that's looking to purchase some stuff from us, from our company, but is looking for like records from like literally like the entirety of the time we've owned something. And so we've had to basically go back and spend months on like pulling out files, scanning them, kind of getting everything together. So that's kind of what's been going on. And so at work, I'm out working not at the office right now. So I'm not on Discord or on Reddit as much. And, my wife was out at, she had a work event tonight, so I was putting the kids to bed. So I've just been busy. And then they were sick the last 2 weeks. So they were, all of them were pretty much sick. I was sick for a little bit too. So, yeah, trying to get back on track and trying to figure out where to add some value of, I think what I figured out was, hold on. Let's see where we're going. Yeah. Tired. Yeah, everybody's tired, right? All of us need to get really rich off one of these stocks so we can take a break, right? Just take a nice vacation. All right, what's up, Valjean? How are you, bud? What's up, Yes? Good evening, good evening. All right. Kind of back holding some TZA holes. That's with options especially. How much time do you have left on them? Are they like at least leaps or like some sort of like, or are they like straight up like Spooner, man, how much theta you got on those? Half or ooh, rough. What are the strikes on those? I mean, it's all relative, but yeah. Yeah, I've gotten to this point now where I don't like doing anything that doesn't have at least a couple months of theta, because I feel like either that or you need to like look into, and this is not financial advice, but like the one thing you can take a look at if you were going to do this in the future, you could always do a spread. I don't know if you were here when the optionality guys were on, but the spreads allow you to basically just bet on the direction, and it removes a lot of the Greeks out of it. So like if you obviously buy, if you're bullish and you think the stock's going to go up, you buy a call and you sell a call. And that way it kind of limits how much, exposure you get. So you only really have to be right about the direction, and the theta doesn't matter as much. So 37, what was TZA today like? It was like 35 today, roughly? Or was that yesterday? How did it? Let me look it up real quick. Hold on. Finished 34.86. That was pretty close. Yeah, so it hit 35 today. I thought saw it in the 35s. Yeah, roughly. I mean, that was a nice gap up, but like, could it go? Sure, but like, what's max pain for SPY? Is it still 408? Let's see. SPY max pain. I think it was 408 last time I saw. It's 400 now. So max pain is now 400. That's probably because we had OPEX today, right? So they probably burned some calls, or sorry, a bunch of puts. Yeah, I mean, they're heavily skewed to the put side. But they probably just burned them recently, so. How are my January 750s? Ooh. You didn't buy in the money, SE? I mean, I know they're cheap right now. Let's see. ATER options chain. But like, I wouldn't be stacking 750s unless you're just playing it for an IV spike. Which, I mean, if you're playing it for an IV spike, I get it. Let's see. You said it was January? Alright. Those are going for roughly, what, like 10 cents? Yeah, I think they're what, like, so you're spending about $100 per contract. Is that roughly right? If the last price. That's a wide. All these options are really wide on their like bid ask. Like I have like 150s for 2024, and I swear, like some days I'll put in like it will go down to like 92 cents on those these ones. I think they're right here. So like these ones right here, these 150s will go down to like 92 cents for a second because the bid is like 105, sorry, not 105, like 5 cents in the beginning of the day. So what ends up happening is like the ask is like 2 something and the bid is like literally like a nickel, and so it makes the price of it like 92 cents. But as soon as you put in 92 cents, the thing jumps up because nobody wants to actually sell it for that. So it like I literally can like make my accounts, if I just like play with the bid ask on these things, like I can actually make it look like I'm like super rich for the day. But it's just at this point right now, it's interesting because until we get some volume, like a lot of these obviously are mine. That's what I've been stacking because at the time that was the lowest they had. Now there's even some down here, but like I'm stacking down here. I'm not stacking up here. Like I know you can make more money up here, but like to be honest with you, I want to make sure that we have a solid base, so I'm putting my money where my mouth is and making sure I'm buying deep in the money, like, what's like 180 something days out. So what's up? When are we hitting 25 on ATER? And not anytime soon unless they buy something that's amazing for M&A and that M&A ends up being like a gold mine. But for right now, I think the more realistic area to be looking in is like the 5 to 7 range on this next warrant run. It could get as high as like maybe 10 to 12, but like I'm looking at this from the last run, which was more like in the 5 to 7 range. So appreciate it, Random. Thank you for the like requests. I feel like most of the people that are on here are people that like are in here every night. So yeah, if you want to hit the like, that'd be great. Most of you have. I was gonna say we're doing pretty well on the average. Yeah, what do you guys want to talk about tonight? I'm happy to kind of go over and cover whatever you guys want. We got like a 66%, right? Oh, now we screwed it up. Now there's 15 people watching. Hit the like now or be a muffin man. Yeah, I mean, it's up to you guys. We can talk about stocks. We can talk about whatever you want. Like obviously today was more of a choppy day as far as like the SPY didn't really do a ton. Like it was up slightly, only like 1.5. Ethereum, I believe, was down. No, they were up technically at the end of the day, right? They were down most of the day and then pushed back up at the end of the day. So they technically finished 6 cents higher. Let's see how some of these did, right? BBBY, they were up 4%. GME was up 1%. AMC was up 1%, or almost 2%. APE was up basically 1%. So it was pretty, like, as far as meme stocks go, if we want to cover like all the memes, we could do, what are the other ones that we like covering? Just want to see. Cost was down today. I like to reference cost too, because they were like an interesting one. Because they were like one of the OG like ones that ran up that were like heavily shorted down. And they're almost like GameStop in a way, because if you actually take a look at their like long term, like if we go out here and make sure to do time frame, 3 years, that's probably good enough. Was this January? Yeah. So they were down here like literally trading sub like 1, and they ran all the way up to 100 something, right? And then since then, kind of like GameStop, like I would imagine this looks very similar if we overlaid GameStop and costs. Just obviously different numbers, but they had this huge spike and then these chops, and now they're like slightly down from where they were, but they still haven't been able to get the stock low. So it's an interesting one, because it kind of mimics, like if we pull up GME now on the daily as well, oops, you'll see kind of a similar thing where like it was down here in the like, it was super low at some points, and then you get the spike, right? Oh wait, this is more recent, right? Are we on the right? Let's pull up 5. Just want to see the 5-year, right? Oh, you know what? That's right. They didn't do this. This is the like split adjusted price. I was gonna say, why doesn't it show the 500? But it's because they've adjusted it for the splits. So there you go. But very similar chart, right? If you look at, you were down here, it spikes, a couple spikes throughout, and then it kind of bleeds off for a while, but they still can't get it like super low. Go back to costs again. Same sort of thing. It spikes. Let me pull out. Okay, it's the same. Yeah, you get that large spike, down, up, a couple spikes, and then it's kind of been bleeding off, but it's still pretty high compared to what it was. So yeah, no, I don't think we're focused on any one stock. Some of us be cussing, but still got our fork in the game. Yeah, I mean, memes tend to run in like cycles. If you look here, you can just, I know this is a little bit messy here, but like you just look at the RSI, right? You've got these huge massive spikes, the price moves up, you've got these massive spikes, and it's not a normal like, oh well, it's like almost like you got news but you didn't get news. So like you've got these random runs, right? This was just beat down, right? They lower the price here, and then it runs like goes from like 6 all the way up to like 12, right? So like it 2x is there, and then it's in this like consolidation pattern. They're trying to push it down again. Like I think it's gonna come at some point. Like it's just a matter of time for a lot of these stocks. you know, DTC, that's another one where this thing's been just an absolute falling knife from the beginning. It was up here in the 20s, and then since then it's been basically just kind of hitting these, almost made a triple bottom. Like, curious to see what ends up happening with this one, because like there's not a ton of volume, right? So like not a ton of volume. But it's still in the uptrend at this point, right? Even with the market like literally crashing 4% the other day, like it's still in the uptrend. So I'd be curious to see what happens once it clears this area. So yeah, HYMC, didn't they find some like extra silver or something like that in one of their mines? Is that what that is? HYMC, pretty sure they got some sort of like drilling results. Yeah, multiple zones of higher grade silver were encountered, higher gold and silver grades than resources average. So that's what happened with them. And remember, AMC does technically have a pretty large stake in them, so anything that's good for them is going to be good for AMC, inadvertently. Yeah, higher grade silver, higher grade gold. That's always a good thing when you're a miner. What do you think of the blockchain stocks? I mean, so crypto is going through like a interesting. And I think there's a couple of you guys that follow crypto probably more than I do. I eye it. I keep an eye on it. I kind of track it against the markets, just as more of a metric. I don't have a ton invested in crypto right now. I kind of got out. I sold most of my loop ring back when it kind of ran, and then just held on to a small bit of it. And that was probably a good call because loop ring's been down since then. I mean, it ran pretty aggressively on news of GameStop, stuff like that. And then I've been slowly just buying some Ethereum and like Bitcoin whenever they dip. But for me, I'm not putting a ton of money in that. That's just my personal, thing. So, yeah, I mean, HYMC, they hadn't, if I remember correctly, they had some active dilution going on, and that's why people were like they were a bit confused. I think I wrote a DD on this for AMC's community, and a bunch of people were like, what are you talking about? And I had to explain to them, like, so they had an ATM, they were raising money on it, right? Yeah. And then they got rid of it. So at the time, they started dipping into this, and then they ended up writing warrants out. Yeah, like, these are the ones that are going to be kind of like, and they're to AMC, so that's fine. Like, so if you want to, you want me to look real quick, I'm happy to cover it because it's not what stock that we've normally covered, right? So here's the deal, right? So they've got some cash now, right? They've raised some cash. They were doing an ATM at the time when all this news with AMC was announced, right? So they had an active ATM and they started selling some shares, and you can see like they started raising cash with it. So people were like, "Why isn't this thing like squeezing?" All these apes are buying it now, right? And what ends up happening? So like, let's take a look at when this happened, right? So this huge move happened here, and then this has probably them been selling like the ATM, right? So like technically, they're not a profitable company. You can just look; they're not profitable yet. So like, you're buying a company that isn't realizing a ton of profit, right? So then they miss here, earnings per share, and then it kind of trickles down. This was better, but at the same time, I don't think there's a huge amount of conviction yet with retail. But overall, like if you look at dilution here, the majority of the warrants that are going to be like the immediate ones are going to be right here, right? These are the March pipe warrants, and they're at 106. So there's 46 million of them, right? And the largest owners are AMC and Sprout. So, I mean, what I can tell you is at this point they're okay on money, right? So they have a decent cash burn, but they do have a bunch of cash that they've already raised. So that's a good thing, right? Most of the dilution's already kind of happened. More dilution will happen here, though, once the stock gets over 106. But, AMC will take on a larger role in the company with this, these warrants getting unlocked. So, and at some point they will have to push the stock up over 106 to even unlock them. So they obviously have time. They have till 2027. But in the meantime, if you just want to like think about it logically, yeah, like you've got, AMC as I don't know how many shares they have, but we'd have to go back to that document. I think it might even be in here. Let's see if we do Control F, AMC. Yeah, so 46.8 million at a purchase price of $1.19. And yeah, where's the other? So AMC owned 12%, 11%, 11.9, 11.9. And they have the right to acquire 13 million, 23 million, and 23 million of common stock. So, after hours doesn't mean a ton, to be honest with you. If you want to just, so here are my thoughts on. So the company's not profitable, but they're also like they've got dilution on the table, but it has to be over 106, right? So the stock right now is 887. Long term they might be fine. They've got a small amount of retail support now that AMC has a large stake in it. So, I mean, the biggest thing is they're like AMC. They have a ton of shares outstanding. So those ones are really hard. Like, let's take a look at the vortex on it. But I'm pretty sure that that's not going to squeeze just because of how many shares outstanding they have. They just have once you get to a certain point, it's really hard to actually like account for those. And there's even more tricks that people can use to kind of hide stuff when you have that many shares. That's why Nokia was having like huge issues. Okay, right. Just taking a look real quick. Yeah, I mean, they're only shorting like less than 6% of the entire stock. So, and utilization is only at 35. So this thing's not a squeeze stock. It's just basically like, do you want to hold a mining company that has a large backing with the stock that you might like in AMC? Like, that's what it boils down to. So it's a preference thing. There are miners out there that are more profitable that you may want to look at. But it all depends on, if you're like huge into AMC and you want to help AMC, then obviously, that's something you can look at as a, like kind of symbiotic. Like if they do well, then AMC will benefit from that because they're going to be a large shareholder in the company. Speaking of warrants, your personal thoughts on the price range for ATER run to access the warrants. Okay, we can cover that. I mean, I feel like I cover it every night, but not everyone's on here every night, so that's totally fine. So I'll cover it till I turn blue. All right, just want to point out what happened last time, right? So here, this is where the DD came out over the weekend, and I'll tell you basically what my thesis is, what happened, and where I went wrong on, and I'll be the first to admit. So the biggest problem I had was I thought that Armistice Capital was long and like an advocate because they did the private placement, so I thought they had confidence in the company long term. So and they still might, but I'll explain that later. But here's what I didn't realize, right? So this, to me, with the amount of shares that we're trading, right, and the actual float, it didn't like match up, right? So this thing keeps running, and then here we get the bots telling us all to sell, and then all of a sudden the stock just continues to drop, gets shorted down even more, and then obviously retail starts bailing around this time, and so why did it run up and why did it fall down? Okay, so it ran up because at the time retail was getting back involved, and at the same time, I think what was happening was Armistice Capital was slapping the ask on these days, and they were the ones pushing the stock price up. Why? Because they had warrants that were unlockable, right? And so what they did was they had acquired a bunch of private placement shares, so common shares that they purchased for like $291 and $290, and then they pushed the stock price up. And then what ended up happening was they probably started selling around here at the $6 range, right? So they got pushed down at the end of the day because they probably dumped out a massive amount, right? And then the next day, same thing happened. Boom. This day they pushed it up, and then this entire day they probably unloaded. And if you look, that's why this day was pretty much all red. This was them probably selling off literally like millions of shares these 2 days. Right, so then they're like, okay, so we can't get that, like, retail was at that point getting scared out. So what ends up happening is they get pushed back up, and then they need to basically just slowly sell off things, and that's what happens here. Retail probably started bailing, my guess would be around this area. I believe they left a gap right here, up here in the high threes, like 380, so that should fill at some point, because we haven't retouched that, have we? I don't think we've retouched that particular gap. Let's see. No, we haven't touched it yet. So that 380 gap will probably fill at some point. But here, so now at this point, right, everything gets quiet. Everyone's in a lull. The thing gets pushed down. People are like, oh, So what's happening is this. So they were not able to unlock warrants until here. So on this day right here, this is when they were able to unlock warrants. So I think what happened was this. They pushed up the price because they saw, us talking about the stock. There was a bunch of buzz on it. So they basically said this. Now, their goal probably was to never be, to own more than 10% of the company, right? So if you own over 9.99% of a company, you then start having to like go through like SEC and do like a bunch of like you have to like register your cells, and there's all these extra loopholes that hedge funds don't want to deal with that, right? They want to just be able to buy and sell things without the SEC looking at what they're doing. So they keep the amount of shares they have under that 9.99%, or basically 10%, and they're able to basically kind of freely operate. So what ends up happening is this: they slap up the stuff, they sell their stock throughout this time period right here, and then the reason why they did that is because they had so many shares that were already like they had another 7 million shares roughly that are unlockable right here on the state, right? So why wouldn't they want to just hold all that? It would push them over to the 10%. So I think what ends up happening then is they bail out of their entire position, which basically they unloaded, I think, like 5 billion shares, which is why we had such a like huge downturn, and then bleed off from there. So what were they going to do again, right? So they don't have, I haven't been really talking about the stock too much. They're going to have somebody else. Maybe they'll send their own person in. You'll probably start seeing all of a sudden, some buzz around it, or they may just slap the ass until they get retail talking about it again, because that's what they can do too. Like sometimes they don't even need DD. They might just pull some sort of old, or trick where they just get an analyst to upgrade something, or they get somebody just to be like, yeah, the stock's not that bad, and write an article about it. And then at that point, what you'll see is them start slapping the ass again. Now, this was obviously a huge gap down day because obviously the market, absolutely tanked. So, we have a gap here to fill as well as one up here in the 310 area, like 309 through 10. We have another one at 380. There's a bunch of gaps on the upside. So those are good things because we think they're going to fill at some point. So this is what's going to end up happening. There's one of two things going on. Kind of explained this. And I explained this yesterday, but the reason why they sold the first time may have been just to keep themselves under the 10%, and they were looking to make a quick buck. So they were like, all right, we bought all these warrants, we're able to sell them now for, 3x what we made on them. Let's go ahead and dump them, and then we'll get the rest of the stuff back in September. And that was their goal the entire time. And that's what they've been basically doing, is controlling the stock to make sure that they can acquire for the next time they try to run this thing up. So you've got that going on, or what you have going on right now is that, so they're basically going to either try to pump it up again just to dump, or they could actually be saying, okay, well, now we want to actually go long. Like, the first round was basically just us making some cash to basically pays for everything that we already put in there. And then on the second time, they just go long on the company and then slowly want to get the price up from where they paid for it. So that's kind of what my thoughts are right now on the stock. Remember, they have to get it above this line even to just start issuing out warrants that are unlockable at this point. So, will we see it this week? Will we see it next week? We don't know yet. But at some point, what we're going to do is we're going to see them start slapping the ask on this and start pushing it up. Now, it may not happen until, October or late September. It could happen in January of next year. We don't know. So, but I do believe that for them to get what they did last time, which was, I think last time they unlocked like a couple million shares, and they pushed it all the way up to 7, right? So on this run, they've got more warrants now. So what they would have to do is, because as soon as they start like unlocking those warrants, they're going to end up being like, as soon as they unlock the warrants, it's dilutive, so the stock will start coming down in price. That's what happens with dilution. So if they got it right up to 320 and started diluting, they would fall below it. So what they have to do is they basically have to get it higher than the 320, and find the easiest way to do that is just to pump the stock. So remember when he said, yeah, so that's where I was wrong, Lestats. So I thought that ATER had all these shares locked up because I believed that Armistice Capital was long, and I didn't think they were going to sell. And that's why they'd sold more shares than actually existed, because we had the float locked up as long as they were long, but they weren't long. They actually sold their entirety of their position. So they were the largest shareholder of ATER, and they dumped their entire position. Which, obviously, I don't know that. We didn't know that until the 13Fs came out. So, I was trying to figure out how that could have happened, and it was because they were the ones probably slapping the ask, right? So we saw this thinking that it was retail and, maybe some institutions buying in, maybe, Armistice was buying more. They probably were. They were probably just getting the stock up here. But this is where we didn't know. We didn't know that this thing was going to dump because we didn't know Armistice was not long on the stock. So, there you go. But yeah, I was going to say, I called as I see it. Like, at that time, we didn't have any reason to think. They literally had just done the private placement back here in March. So they did the private placement back in March. It seemed like they were excited about the partnership with Armistice Capital. They released a thing, and then what ends up happening is they dump the entirety of their position up here. So yeah, I do remember when I said it was a royal flush, and unfortunately I didn't see the big picture, which was those guys were not going to be long, and they dumped their entire position. So this time I think we have a better understanding, because we now know that the last time they did this, they were just doing it to push up the stuff to bail out. And so with that knowledge, we now can do a better job actually predicting what they're going to do. So, yeah, Dave, I do believe that this stock will probably go back up above 5, because for them to dilute 7 million shares, they need the stock to be higher than the 320 mark, because as soon as they start diluting at 320, they would fall below that, right? Because as soon as you dilute a stock, literally the value of it goes down. So for them, they are going to try to get this thing to run again. They're going to try to get some sort of excitement going and get people back into Ethereum, and then they're going to try to, again, my guess would be, is to one of two things. They're either going to be long on the stock and they just want this price to be higher, or they're going to be basically just pushing up to sell like they did last time. So that would be my guess on what's going to end up happening. So with the knowledge, though, I'm just trying to, like I said, I'm trying to call it as I see it. I'm not trying to blow smoke up on anyone's ass. We didn't know that Armistice Capital wasn't long this run. We now know what they did last time, so we have to assume at this point that Armistice Capital is, yeah. So I said we need 7 anon. Yeah, I feel you. I've got a bunch of friends who have averages that are in the 6s, so I understand. We don't know what they're going to go to. Like, that's the honest truth. Like, they could go even higher. They could go to 10 because the 7 million shares they have to dilute. The question is, they have to basically re-engage retail. And the reason why they have to re-engage retail is on this run right here, they needed someone to sell to, right? If all of retail is selling in this area right here, it's going to be harder for them to actually get the stock up here when they want to sell it, like last time. Or they're just going to straight up have to take less profit on this run. But this is more shares, right? So, like, in this case, what we need to... Can you see 7? Yeah, I mean, like... So, here, they had 5 million shares last time, right? And they ended up getting it up to 7. Now they have 7 million, so 2 million extra shares. So, if they got it up to 7 last time on 5, I would think that probably, like... 7 to 10 might be possible, because that would be roughly about like what the extra 2 million shares are. Once again, it also is going to depend, because at this point I think retail is pretty wary, right? So retail at this point is going, well, I remember Ethereum. I remember every time they run up, they get like smacked down. It's not as bad as like BBIG, but it's left a bad taste in a lot of retail's mouth, right? So they have to basically find new people to sell to if that's their tactic. So, I mean, there's one of two things going to happen. Like I said, they're going to end up being the ones that probably pay like some, sort of like news agency to put out some decent articles and get people buying in the stock, right? Because there's always two sides of every story, right? Like on every trade, there's two sides. You've got a buyer and you've got a seller. So like for them, they've got to find people to sell to. If they want to unload 7 million shares, if they don't want to be in this stock long and they were just always in this for like the short term, then you're going to see them push it up really, just slap the ass, move the price up, and then they'll start unloading it. But they need to get people excited, right? And so, like, last time, I basically did that for them without realizing it. Like, I thought we were actually running up because we were squeezing. Because remember, we got up to like 40% short interest, like it was climbing. There were literally like millions of FTDs happening every single day, and all that was happening was they basically had a plan. I think. Let me pull up Vortex, because I can show you what happened and why we were basically like, oh, this is definitely squeezing. Whereas now we know. The problem was when we calculate a free float, we're not expecting the longs in this, especially the largest shareholders, to dump their entire position. So if we go to like the short interest, right, and we did the history, if I pull up, right, because remember there was tons of utilization, it was locked in this. So we literally had been at 100% utilization since like February. And then we went this entire time when the stock ran up at 100% utilization, right? Not only that, but the cost to borrow had skyrocketed, right? The cost to borrow had gone from like basically like 6% all the way up to at times over 100%, right? So all these things were pointing to it squeezing, and what ends up happening is Armistice unloads their entire position. Like shares on loan was like, they literally had, times, what's the highs here? Like 20 million shares on loan. Yeah, I mean, like, it was pretty insane. Remember, 20 million shares on a stock that only had like a certain amount of free float. This thing was like primed and ready. They had like 40%, almost 50% of the entire stock was shorted during that time. Look at that. Well, la-di-da. But, like I said, we didn't expect the largest shareholder to just dump their entire position. Like, we thought they were long. They literally had just done a private placement with the company months before, and ATER had released a press release saying, like, they were very excited about it. So, there you go. In the future, I'm not assuming anybody's ever going to not sell. So when we do these, unless they're an insider, you just have to basically calculate the float out like we were. And then we'll do it from there, because insiders, it's a lot harder, and most of them don't sell. Unless they're like an institution like a BlackRock or a Vanguard, they might trim here and there, but for the most part, they're just adding it to ETFs and stuff like that. So, but yeah, look at these FEDs. Remember back here, they failed to deliver almost, was it like 2.5 million shares on a day during the run-up? 2.5 million shares not delivered on a stock that, like, at the time only had like a free float of like, a couple million. I mean, I'm still annoyed by the whole thing. But what we at least know on this is at some point it's probably going to happen again. If you look, utilization's back over 100%. These have been kind of in free fall, but they'll probably start building again. Yeah. So there should be a spike at some point when they try to unlock these warrants. That's my guess. So obviously, none of this is financial advice, but, if I was, just looking at this objectively, I think that's what ended up happening last time. It was Armistice that pumped this thing and made a ton of money, and then, so. All right. It's a sequel that makes no sense and nobody wants, but yet. No, I don't blame you, Goat. It's all up to you guys. I mean, like, at this point right now, we'll just have to see what ends up happening. But if we look here throughout, like, kind of like its history, we know kind of, we've been watching the stock for a long time. We understand it, I think. So let's see what ends up happening. My guess is we'll see volume come back to the stock at some point. Not sure what's going to spark it, but it will happen. Okay. Hopefully that answered the question about price targets and stuff like that on Ethereum. Was there anything else? I know, obviously, BBBY has been interesting. If we look at the Ortex numbers for them. All right. Still got 28 million short interest is the estimate. Last report came out, said 30 million. I don't think they really closed that much, but utilization still locked up. Cost to borrow has been rising. Spiked, still holding though about 16%. Let's see. FTDs are starting to build though. Not quite the 3 million we got back here, but good amount of them. Still lending out a bunch. So, we drinking scotch tonight? Nah, I was gonna say I haven't drank anything tonight. He's not coughing, so maybe. Nah. The cough's been better. I've been trying to do a better job about what I'm eating also, because that does seem to make a difference. I know you guys like it when I overeat and cough all the time, but, we'll see. It's like sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. It just really depends. All right. Anyone else got any new tickers, anything to report, anything fun? What's going on? I noticed your AVYA or whatever. Was it AVYA? I noticed it was barcoding today. Is Dirty on here? Yeah, what's going on with that one? Yeah, so I noticed when I pulled it up today, I was watching it, and it started getting not a ton of volume compared to where it had been. And when they got like very little volume, what I noticed was this thing started looking like BBIG when it barcoded. I mean, hell, look at this. Like, this is all algo controlled. Like, look at this. It's insane. 8 million shares traded, and yet, what? Like, literally, like, look at these. It's trading like a couple thousand back and forth at the same exact price. Step it down a couple, do nothing. Step it up a couple. Like, this is nuts. Like, this is what, like, Mullen and, like, some of those, like, crappy, like that's what these look like when they're just completely algorithmically controlled, and like they don't go anywhere. They're just like trading shares back and forth for the most part. Like, it started out normal, right, and then just completely got taken over by algorithmic trading, like right around here. Like, what was that? Close to 1 o'clock, like basically at 1 o'clock, this thing basically went to algo trading and then just got completely. Look at that. Like, that's not a normal chart. 4 and 4 will be the catalyst. There you go. Dreaded yawn, indicating the end is near. Yeah. So we got that. Shorts are still in on it. I think on the gamma squeeze, if I remember correctly, isn't that like number 1 right now on the gamma? Let me just log in real quick. Oops. I wasn't really trying. I was trying to look at it, but okay. Sure. Let's take a look real quick at. Sorry. Yeah, short squeeze right now, it's 85. The gamma squeeze, though, it's 98. Number 1 at 62. So, yeah, we're done, boys. We will be in a second. I do want to at least. Interesting. What's BBIG doing up here? Look at BBAI up here, too. Interesting. All right. let's pull up just a couple of these option chains via options. I mean, there's a good amount of open interest on this thing. Yeah, well, yeah. So I was gonna say, I mean, this thing's high up on the gamma squeeze. Apparently, so is BBIG. So is BBAI. Let's take a look. Beyond Meat's on here. Stuff's building. It's just taking a while. I even see Prague on here. This is old Prague. So. Hold on a second. Sorry, hold on. Oh yeah, we looked at this before. They've already basically used up most of their stuff. So most of the money's already in, right? They already diluted out of this. They raised a bunch of cash, and that should last them for quite a while. But they did dilute pretty massively. So if you look at it, yeah, I remember looking at this with you guys before, but like, they've got plenty of cash now, right? Warrants are all basically locked. ATM's expired. All the warrants have been unlocked at this point, so they got their money. Institutional ownership is still a bit low. It's not like a shortable thing, but yeah, that float's like very, very large. So, is this going to squeeze? No, probably not. But like, could the stock make a run, at some point? Sure, we could probably get up to like $1 again at some point. And that's not because of short interest. It just would be them turning around the business with the money they raised. But they massively diluted, so that or a share buyback. But, I mean, it's possible if they did a share buyback, that would definitely be a catalyst for the stock price, moving up aggressively. But it's not like there's a ton of short interest for them to, like, close out, so there's only, like, 6%, so. Hello, muffin people. What's up, Vassal? How are you, bud? Is that guy holding a pot leaf? Who's holding the pot leaf? Yeah, turning a profit would be helpful. Doing a share buyback would be helpful. Most of the dilution already happened. So if if you're buying down here, then at that point it's just the little yellow man. What? All right. I think I'm done. Do you guys have anything else? Did I get all the tickers pretty much? BGXX. What do you know the risks of OTC stocks? They're huge. Because a lot of them are companies that, like, were delisted off of the exchange, and now they come with very little protection. That's why you would basically have to like get a waiver to buy the shares. Most of them are pump and dumps, to be honest with you. They'll put out some PR news. They'll make some money, here and there. Like, they'll buy a couple million shares at 5 cents, and then they'll put out some PR news, and their insiders start selling just to try to raise some money. Bright Queen. I don't know this stock. What do they do? What do you do here? They did a private placement. Yeah, I covered ATER for a while. So if you want to go back and rewatch it, I'm not going to cover it again. But yeah, I like pretty in depth covered ATER. All right. Yeah, so I see here they did a private placement of $10 million. They sold $9.5 million, and with common shares and stock to purchase, at $105. So the warrants have been sold already. So there's dilution coming down the pipeline. How do you feel about CYRN? Let's take a look. CYRN, Siren Software Company, market cap of 10 million. So they must have a small float. Yeah, less than 6, or roughly 6 million. They do have a bunch of warrants and some convertible notes out. So they've got pipe warrants at 371 through Armistice. So could be a similar situation where if we look up at the daily, the warrants are at 371, so that would be roughly just try to mark it out for you. There. So they need to get above this line. I'm just going to make it like, I don't know. There. So they need to get above that line to unlock the warrants. So could you see another run up there? Sure. Like you could see a run on that. So Luther wants, but yeah, they do have warrants, and there's about 3.1 million, which is about half their float. So HKD is the last one I'll do. They had a pretty nice day. Volume came out of nowhere. Let's see. HKD, 16 million float, 1% short interest, one of the most comprehensive digital solutions. I mean, it looks like they have an offering ATM they dipped into. Yeah, I was going to say this is probably one of those just pump and dumps that they're doing to basically get money out of China. So, the theory was that all those ones that ran a couple weeks ago, they're literally just trying to funnel money out of China because China's economy is going to crash. So, personally, for me, I'm not touching this thing. I don't think you were there. If I remember correctly, like, I don't remember exactly, but I do remember something I read that was basically like, yeah, they're just literally trying to get money out of China. So there you go. But yeah, if you want to play these volatile ones, go for it. But I'm not looking to buy up here at like 200 something. Or is that 2,000? What did it get up to? 2,500, and then gets down to 47. Yeah, I'm not playing with that. But you guys have added if you're interested. Oh, they're running just because the SEC's apparently just allowing this to happen. Like, they shut off anything that runs normally. Like, if GameStop or another meme stop was to run 20%, they'd shut off trading to it. But apparently these ones can run up like thousands of percent. They don't blink an eye. So they're running up basically because Chinese businesses and rich people want to get their money out of China. So they're literally like using the stock market to pump up their wealth outside of China and then sell out here. So they've got billionaires who are looking to basically exit their money out of their market and into ours. So that's what's going on. Okay. Yeah, they ran like hell. They like IPO'd at like 12 and then got up to like 2,000. It was crazy. And there's people literally bag holding up here, which is sad. So, there. Okay, I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed, guys. But if you want to join us and hang out on the Discord, we do have a free Discord. I always mention at the end of these videos. I apologize for not being organized and marking my videos better, but, we're working on it. All right, so closing off these. I'll put a link to the Discord in here, and then you guys have a great evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. It should be, yeah, there we go. Pulling it up, and here we go. Put the link in the YouTube video. Never expire. All right, you guys have a great evening, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.